cost of the national dialogue, which was announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa early this week, has been estimated at around a whopping 700 million rand. And this has been preliminarily confirmed by the National Dialogue's Preparatory Task Team, which comprises the national foundations as well as presidential representatives, together with Nedlac. The National Dialogue Preparatory Committee briefed the media in Rosebank in Johannesburg on Friday. Early this week, President Cyril Ramaphosa said the national dialogue would take place across the country and would then be preceded by a national convention on the 15th of August this year. The first convention will then set out an agenda for the dialogue. The Preparatory Committee said it will then first present the draft budget to the Inter-ministerial Committee, which has also been appointed by the President for the series of events.
We have received a draft budget from the Preparatory Task Team. What we could say firstly is that democracy is not cheap. Building a nation is very costly. And that's why the next thing we're going to do, emerging from this work, we're going to go to the Inter-ministerial Committee where we present the draft budget. Then we workshop that budget, and just to give you a sense, just to pull the provinces, the municipalities, you're looking probably estimation of more than 700 million. So that's quite a lot of money. So we just need to make sure that we deal with all those issues. But this includes the following. If you take the States SA in terms of reaching out to people through their processes of numeracy and doing counting in the country, those are some of the existing resources that the state has. So you might be tapping into those existing resources so that what you then call operational costs might be then taken into other existing programs of the state, so that indeed no one is left behind. Using also what the Home Affairs has, so you can reach out as many South Africans as possible. The other issue, of course, is the digital communication. That as well will be another method through the work that already exists, whether through GCIS, but also working with the media. As you heard in the statement, that there is a communication work stream, and that communication work stream will pull together various existing initiatives.
All right, from on this, let's now welcome Phoebe Potgietat-Gumule, who's the member of the National Dialogue's Preparatory Task Team. Phoebe, it's great to have you with us this afternoon. Welcome. So let's start here. Now that the President has made the official announcement to commence on the first part of the National Dialogue, firstly explain to us how this process is actually structured and how long also it will take to actually facilitate.
Okay, so the kickoff of the National Dialogue will be the 15th of August, but in the lead up towards that process, there's also, consultations that organizations have already planned, because they want to come to the National Convention in August prepared with the set of issues that the National Dialogue must deal with. Amongst the things that a lot of organizations also want to look at is how do they ensure that we don't leave anybody behind. Mm-hmm. So that's the National Convention in August. And then we're looking at a 6 to 9 month process of consultation, sectoral meetings, theme-based discussions, which then eventually will culminate in the second National Dialogue, which we expect to be early next year.
So, Phoebe, in essence, you're saying that, of course, the National Convention that takes place in August, this budget actually provides for that as well. It actually caters for that as well.
Let's start the issue of the budget. Firstly, as the representative from the Deputy President's office indicated, that there still has to be a process about it. In addition to that, I think that he used examples of what one would call in-kind contributions that makes up all of what eventually the National Dialogue activities must include. So for example, if there is a consultation in a particular church, the church won't charge for using their venue because it's an activity that's convened by them. So that is why we think that the amount that's been mentioned in the initial budget is way above, because the understanding is that a lot of the activities will be in kind. I mean, yes, of course, an activity like the First National Convention will have to be funded because it brings people from across the country, and you will have to make provision for that. But we don't think that will be the final amount.
I mean, let's talk further about the amount, Phoebe, because, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the reaction, not just from political parties, but from, South Africans in general, who are wondering why such a huge price tag? What exactly will this money be used for? Because I suppose the general notion in the country is that some of these big undertakings, like workshops and so forth, end up just being talk shops.
Well, if you look at the approach towards the national dialogue, what we want to do is to ensure that nobody gets left behind. And that includes reaching people in every single voting districts. There's about 23,000 of them across the country, 4,300 wards across the country. But in addition to that, there are also specific sectors, such as, people living with disability. It may be, young workers. It may be a whole range of different sectors. So we need to make sure that it does. But I certainly think that the propose or the figure that was mentioned at the meeting yesterday, or the press briefing yesterday, is really not something that we think is realistic. What we think is that in the process of bringing in all sectors, all organizations in our society, that we will be able to harness a lot of social capital, and using venues and facilities of organizations that want to be part of the national dialogue. I mentioned, for example, churches. There's been conversations with SALGA, for example, to use town halls, community halls, libraries, schools, etc. So certainly the figure proposed is quite exorbitant, and we don't think that will be the final figure. It will certainly should be much lower.
All right. And then, we spoke earlier on, Phoebe, about, of course, the process and length of time that it will actually take just to facilitate the first part of this. And I think you mentioned about 6 to 9 months. So do we at this stage, are you able to give us an official date or days that these, of course, dialogues will then be taking place and being facilitated?
So the meeting on the 15th of August, which will set the agenda and also agree on the broad consultation process. The suggestion is that over that period of the 6, at most 9 months, we don't think it will take that long. There will be community meetings in different wards. Some of the wards are a little bit large, so you may want to have more than one gathering. There will be provincial meetings, regional meetings in districts, as well as sectoral meetings, because you may find that, I got a call this morning from somebody who worked with Indigenous knowledge, for example, who said that they're interested in bringing their issues to the national dialogue. And what we suggested to them is that you are a foundation that deal with these issues. Why don't you organize a broad national dialogue activities on Indigenous knowledge and see how it fits into our vision for the South Africa we want over the next 30 years of democracy. So we think that kind of activity should be too long, because at the end of the day we need to arrive at a document that will form the basis of that social compact that the president announced. But at the same time, you also don't want to restrict people from being able to bring their issues to the fore, to have the conversations. But not also only have the conversations in their own organization, but also to link up with other people that don't know what indigenous knowledge is, and to be able to reach out, because the national dialogue is also about South Africans coming together and talking, listening to each other and engaging on issues that they may not have engaged before, like the example of indigenous knowledge that I mentioned.
Absolutely, Phoebe. And just maybe as a parting shot, I know it's still early days, of course, and this is also still in its draft stages, but are you anticipating any setback should, say, any political parties or parties go the legal route and take you to court?
Well, I think this is the wonders of our democracy, that anybody can use any state of arm of the state, whether it's a submission to Parliament or requesting a meeting with the executive or take a matter for court. I think that's the strength of our democracy. But I think that the idea with the national dialogue is to make sure that every South African feel that they can contribute towards that process. It would be unfortunate if anybody feels that they don't have a voice to be able to put forward their views. And we would make the call to everybody, from the smallest, Stockveld, to political parties, trade unions, business organizations, professional organizations, CBOs, to see themselves as part of this process.
Absolutely, Phoebe. As we say, challenges are known, but commitment by all is still missing. So this would be a great opportunity to actually try and bring those two sides together to find amicable solutions. Phoebe, we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. That is Ms. Phoebe Potgieter-Qubule there on the National Dialogue.